We're recording. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Deborah Swanson. I will be hosting this session. It is titled Improving Your Networking Skills with Impromptu Speaking. By joining us today, you are acknowledging that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones are muted, and you are encouraged to post questions and comments in the chat. The live transcription is also enabled. And now I am pleased to introduce the presenters, Roseanne Bensley, Bill Davis, and Wendy Conaway. The floor is yours.
Good day. I am thrilled to be kicking off our program today. As mentioned, we will be discussing impromptu speaking. And with that, we will look at our next slide to kick off our program. Where have you been where you haven't heard that communication is a valuable skill? Every employer will say this individual was promoted or advanced because they just had perfect communication skills. And maybe someone else might have been more talented, but unfortunately, if they weren't able to present themselves positively in the public eye, those talents may have been overlooked. So let's take a look at what the employers consider important. They all are related to communication: listening, emotional intelligence, public speaking, and being able to be quick on your feet, flexible and adaptable. Also, you probably have seen many stories where individuals were concerned about speaking in public and thinking of many things to take away the fear. 70% of our population are fearful of public speaking. That's a large number. That's almost everyone. And I bet some of you could raise your hand and say, that's me. I'm part of that 77%. But our goal is to encourage you to consider public speaking as a goal, as a strategy to put you into the population who excel at it. And through this program, we will be providing you with tips and suggestions on how to improve your public speaking. The value of impromptu speaking. Someone asked in the chat earlier, I know how to prepare for a prepared speech, but how do I prepare for an impromptu speech? My answer to them was read. Read as much as you can. Pay attention to what's going on in the world around you. The more you absorb knowledge and information, the more your brain can actually help you and aid you in coming up with answers to unexpected questions, or that quick response by a boss or supervisor that says, what do you think about this? Or what is your thought on that? The last thing you want to do is look fearful, look in the sky, and wonder, how am I going to answer this? Instead, the more your brain is filled with knowledge and information, you're going to be able to make that thoughtful commentary.
Okay, Roseanne, you want me to take it over from here, or any final comments on your end?
Bill, the stage is yours.
All right, that's good. I like that term, the stage is yours. I would just like to say that it's an honor and a pleasure to be here with my two colleagues, and we do a lot. You know, you talk about reading. I'm add practicing in there. You know, we've done a lot of practicing impromptu speaking, especially the last 6 months since I've known Roseanne and Wendy and so forth. In a Toastmasters group, and it's a practice field for me. Even though I've got a lot of experience, I go in there for the impromptu speaking and just to engage. And I really love what they do and the topics they bring up. So anyway, that's just my own personal thoughts on that. But I want to tell you about networking, that successful relationships involve cultivating all the different mutual benefits as partners earn to trust. You know, trust is honesty, competence, dependability, reliability, likability, right? So when you're networking and you're getting to know people, they get comfortable and they begin to trust, and what happens is now we form a foundation of mutual trust where there's open communication. We're working toward common goals to improve each other. We are also committed to seeing each other win. They're win-win scenarios. And also organizational support, and using resources and tools so that we get even better. So the point is, you want to think about your thinking, metacognition, right? You want to think about, Roseanne mentioned the brain. You want to think about, once you practice something and rehearse something a few times, you get better at it. I know I saw Dr. Jessie Upshaw in the audience here make a comment that she said, I still get stage fright. Well, Jesse, so do I, but I got to tell you, when I presented with you, when we presented together in the honors program, I didn't see any stage fright. As a matter of fact, I was following you and I thought you just did an absolute superb job. So when we work together like this toward mutual gain, we build trust, right? And how do you network? You network through sometimes just creating some small talk, right? And this particular article I wrote for our UAGC community, it's just a short one, and it's from a book that I had read. There's some content in there, but it's also based on my experience, being in sales and marketing for a number of years, 3 decades, from the front line, the middle, and at the top executive levels. And I had to learn how to build some rapport with people. And I had to find those commonalities, those common grounds, and to get out there and give my best, and talk within their interest, right? So what I'm here to do today is encourage you to read this short article. It's a 3-minute read. We put it in there, but I'm going to go ahead and just cover what's in it real quick, and then I'll be good, I'll be brief, and I'll be gone. So let me do this. Let me give you some tips from the Fine Art of Small Talk from Deborah Fine. All right. And when you practice these things, just relax. You can't break nothing, right? I mean, when you go into situations, they're just people. And sometimes our brains will tell us, I'm afraid. But boy, when you can overcome that and just try it and jump in the pool, you find out you can swim and you can do really great things. So here's the tips. Prepare in advance. Formulate icebreakers. Understand the context and the situation. That's what good leaders do. And, I have to tell you that we're all individuals. We're all different, right? Nobody's got the same DNA. So we all experience different real or perceived apprehensions sometimes. But when you prepare in advance icebreakers that are friendly, that are warm, are at the right tone, and this is what happens in Toastmasters. They might say, hey, Bill, tell us about the best 4th of July you ever had. Describe it and tell it what it was like. You've got 3 minutes or so. And all of a sudden I'm going into my memory bank and I'm talking, right? So that's impromptu speaking. But the point is, prepare in advance icebreakers so you can ask good questions. Be friendly. Use a welcoming tone. It's critical to remember that there's 3 parts to any message. There's a content part, there's a tone, then there's a relational part, where when the message translates, the receiver knows, you want to feel comfortable with me. You want to meet me in the middle. That's so important when you build rapport and you're friendly. Introduce yourself first. Don't be afraid to go out there and relax and put a hand out and shake a hand or introduce yourself or position yourself. You'll know the context and what you need to do. When I went into Toastmasters, I didn't know anybody. And all of a sudden, when I was in there, I'm meeting people from around the United States, some that have come into the country. It's very diverse, a varied group of perspectives. And what's happening to me is I'm expanding my comfort zone. I'm making new discoveries. Ask open-ended questions. In my professional sales and marketing career, I always used to teach everybody who, what, when, where, how, why questions. Natural. There's no trick in this. It's conversation. What can you tell me what you learned from that experience? How can we improve you? When you do those things with the right tone, open-ended questions work. Now, here's the acronym I want you to walk away with. If you walk away with one thing from my part here, remember the acronym FORM, F-O-R-M. Now, this is what you use when you're talking to people. Let's see that I see Wendy or Roseanne for the first time and I don't know them. I might say, Wendy, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm also an educator at University of Arizona Global Campus. Wendy, some of your family, are your family all located around the area where you live, or are they outside the States? See, there's a family question. I might ask her occupations. That's the O in form. I might say, can you tell me a little bit about the occupations that you've had before. I understand you were in a corporate environment. R stands for recreation. What do you like to do? Do you go camping? What are some of your hobbies, etc.? And then M is miscellaneous, that just all comes up just from being in the conversation. So you've got the acronym FORM. I don't know about you, but I like little index cards. I buy them down at the dollar store. I put them up and I keep them here. And if I want to learn something, I'm a kinesthetic learner, so I'll write it down, form, and I'll tape it up here and I'll look at it a few times. It's in the brain, the structure. So you want to remember form. You also want to remember that be natural, be authentic and genuine, be sincere, have good intent, right? And then you also want to avoid some of the topics that, this is in the article, nobody likes people that want to gossip, or can I tell you this, or, some things you want to, personal misfortunes, you want to avoid some of those conversations when you're meeting people and you're networking, but you want to be positive, make sure your body language matches your words, actively listen. Roseanne pointed out some of those things, pay attention, be empathetic. In a classroom, I like to think that I lead with empathy and I act with compassion where I get involved. I want students to feel what I'm saying, the content. I want that to transfer. So I'm always active listening to see if they understand it. Now, here's the one point. This is the close for me. Know when to exit a conversation gracefully. All right. And let me just say this. Thank you for listening to me on my part. It's an absolute pleasure to be a part of this. And I am going to tell you to advance the slide, Roseanne. I hope I did good.
Yes, Bill, you did. And thank you so much for sharing all of your insight. I'm telling you, Bill knows how to nail it, and he definitely knows how to express himself, whether it's a prepared speech or an impromptu response. For those of us who do not have the gift of gab, as Bill so definitely has, we often feel anxious when we're put on the spot. The pressure to start talking is so intense that we simply begin without a mental plan for the response and then find ourselves lost in our own words. These opportunities are seldom randomly generated. They typically relate to the context of the situation. Toastmasters International prepares our members for extemporaneous or off-the-cuff opportunities to answer questions or provide comments and opinions by facilitating table topic sessions in our meetings. As Roseanne and Bill have said, it does require us to be aware of our situation, whether or not it's the meeting itself, whether or not it is the context of our community. We need to actively listen so we're not caught unaware of the context in the event that we may be solicited to answer a question, give an opinion, etc. In our Toastmasters International meetings, we ask questions that are related to the theme of the meeting as a whole, and our members are primed to formulate an answer that will be relevant. In terms of tips and strategies, I see 3 parts of impromptu speaking that we encourage our members to practice in our table topic sessions. First, as I already mentioned, actively listen to the question. Second, take time to think about your answer. Think about what that question is really asking, and how you plan to communicate it to your audience. State your position and then explain why you took that position. And third, speak clearly, distinctly, slowly, and confidently. Anxiety and nervousness often lead people to talk too fast and therefore not enunciate clearly enough. Practicing speaking slowly and with clarity will enhance your self-confidence in these situations, as well as provide a better response to your audience. If it's a yes or no question, state that. And if it's open-ended, give a short answer and then explain why or how. The answers only need to be 1 to 2 minutes in length, which, when you're speaking, can seem like an eternity, but really it isn't. Practicing in table topic sessions helps members gain a sense of how long they should speak especially when there's no one around to time them. Next slide is table topics examples. At this time, I'd like to demonstrate some table topics examples. At this point, what I'm going to do is offer a table topics question, and then I am going to ask for whoever is not answering the question. I think perhaps Roseanne had volunteered to be the first respondent to our table topic question, and I think Bill is going to be the timer, so you can see what it looks like to answer an impromptu question in our Toastmasters table topic session. Roseanne, are you ready?
Ready.
All right, here is your question. If you had the opportunity to get one meaningful message across to a large group of people, what would your message be?
It's a very good question, Wendy. People may not know, but I spent 30 plus years in career services for a different institution, and many individuals would come to me with concerns, fears, apprehension. And the one thing that I always remembered was that every day is an interview. Every day when you present yourself in public, whether it be via Zoom or in person, you may not realize it, but you're in the interview. As part of that, there's that conscious effort to use the philosophy of UAGC, which is a culture of care. I always think about how the other person on the other end is feeling, what might be going on in their day. How can my interaction with that individual make their day better instead of worse? The worst thing in the world is, for example, for those of you in the audience who work retail, how many times do you have a customer who's not very happy, who might be a little irate? It's possible that they did not realize that their actions are going to be remembered and categorized as a form of their reputation. Another thing that I always think about that I want people to remember is a quote by Maya Angelou. And I won't say the entire quote, but the theme of her quote is that what people remember is how you made them feel. Did you make them feel good? Did you make them feel bad? Did you make them feel heard? What was the emotion that you left with the person that you're interacting with? Sometimes it requires to ask more questions. You may not know exactly what the person is thinking, but ask them questions, find out what's going on. If you listen to today's keynote speech at TLC, one of the discussion points in that keynote was the fact that many students never had instructors that asked them how they felt. How are they doing? What's going on in their world? And simply taking action to recognize the thoughts of another person can really change the trajectory of the conversation, the progress with that individual, and the future interactions that one might have. So keep in mind that every day is an interview, and be aware of how you're making other people feel.
That's excellent, Roseanne. I love the idea of every day is an interview. Every interaction can be an interview. You're putting your best foot forward. You're stopping to think about the question. You are formulating the answer to the question, and then you're delivering it to the best possible context with your audience in mind. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much for demonstrating that table topic question. We do appreciate that. Now, all of our table topics questions in our meetings are given and delivered with the theme in mind. And the theme of today is, how do you deliver impromptu questions? At this point, I'd like to turn the floor over to Bill to recap what we've learned from today.
Yes, and Madam Toastmaster, this is how it works. We would show the colors to alert Roseanne as she's on time, and she did that in 3 minutes and 37 seconds. So congratulations to you. And a lot of times we'll give applause and so forth. So that's just absolutely wonderful. Now, what have we learned today? Improving your networking with impromptu speaking. The thing that you want to remember is a structure to this, right? But don't put pressure on yourself. Apply these principles. You've heard about empathy, listening. You've heard about asserting yourself in the right way. But remember, practice makes perfect. Practice, practice, practice. In the club, we have a lot of rapport building. You can see it's natural, and we do talk a lot amongst each other, and we support one another. And Dr. Boyd Miller picked up on something that I was using early on, and he loves it, and he repeats it, and I repeat it. We all repeat it, is practice, 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 right? You cannot sharpen your saw. You can't do that unless you're practicing and you're building your confidence, right? Confidence is a sweet spot between arrogance and despair. That's not something I made up. That's what Dr. Rosabeth Moss Canner, Harvard Business Review editor, et cetera, she says that in her books. Confidence, the sweet spot, how teams win. When you look at your confidence level, practice, 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 you'll feel better, right? Here's the thing I want to leave you with, because I think this is so important. I'm fresh out of teaching Management 425. And in one of the weeks there, we talked about, what drives performance, right? And we talked about being aware of your emotions, self-aware, because your emotions drive your motivation. Your motivations drive your behaviors drive your performance, right? So if you're thinking about your thinking, building your confidence, putting yourself in different communication scenarios without practice, wow. You're expanding your capacity, your comfort zone. You're doing good. So Toastmasters will provide you with the tools to become effective communicators. Impromptu speaking skills allow us to respond. Again, key word, being a little redundant with this, and repetition is an active learning method. And so when you think about building confidence, repetition, skill sets, right? You're going to develop these characteristics, these attributes that you're going to find in yourself every day. So have fun doing this. Continue to expand, because there is so much knowledge in this room and the audience, et cetera. And think about if we can optimize that through speaking, through communicating. So that's what I see that we've learned here. And I think my two colleagues have done just an amazing job. And boy, I tell you, I learned to pay attention to them. So, let's all continue to share and communicate and develop ourselves. So with that said, I'm going to turn it back over to Roseanne and see if we have any questions, anything for us. Please jump in, have some fun. It can be any kind of question. When did you first overcome your fear? Dana, you're in the audience. You and I went into the March matchup, right? We did with the promotion. That was fun, right? We went out there and just let it fly. But any questions? I'm Ming Zen. Anything you might want to ask us? We're here for you.
I have another thought. We have an opportunity to practice an impromptu question. Why don't we do that? How about if I ask our audience an impromptu question, and if you'd like to answer it in 1 to 2 minutes, raise your hand and we will call on you. And here's the impromptu question. What is your favorite kind of cookie and why? What is your favorite kind of cookie and why? If you'd like to answer that question in 1 to 2 minutes, be more than happy to entertain your answer. Let's see if anybody wants to give it a go. Your favorite kind of cookie. Now in Toastmasters, if we don't have a volunteer, we call on somebody. It looks like Jessie has raised her hand up.
All right.
Okay.
You stand the crickets.
All right. There you go.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the fact that I wish I could eat cookies, but unfortunately I can no longer have them, but I still have a favorite kind of cookie. It brings back a memory of making something called boiled cookies with my mom growing up. It's a cookie that doesn't involve an oven. You just stand together at the stove and you put all the ingredients into the pot and just stand there and stir. It was always an opportunity to just chat together with what's going on, making sure you don't burn the chocolate or the oats or the butter, and just stirring. And then you just drop it on wax paper. And I would always love to grab them before they were cool and formed, and just eat the chocolate and oatmeal. And it's something that'll remain with me always. And now I make those with my kids.
That is so
Okay,
cool.
that's excellent. Now, Jesse, you completed that in 54 seconds. So typically right now is when I would put a green background up, and that's when you know you are welcome to cut it off.
So I should have kept going
You
until I
should
saw
have-
green.
Exactly. Some people don't realize how difficult it is to talk for 1 full minute. And then you would have an additional 30 seconds, and then you would see this. And then after that, you would see 2 minutes, you are done, wrap it up. That's how we demonstrate our table topics in our sessions. It's not always easy to answer in an entire minute. Would anybody else? We have a little bit of time left. If anybody else would like to try an impromptu question, raise a hand and I can ask the question. I already have it prepared, so just in case. All right. Okay, Dana has raised her hand. Dana, in 1 minute to 2 minutes, to dunk or not to dunk your cookie, which would you prefer and why?
In theory, I would prefer to dunk, but this goes back to a story with my father that some of you may have heard before. My father and I had a tradition of Oreo cookies. And what this tradition would entail is very late in the evening, we would sneak out into the kitchen and open up the pantry, and we would break open a bag of Oreo cookies and sit across from one another and do the whole untwisting of the cookies to dunk into the milk. It was a tradition that started when I was very, very young, and it's one that has continued on until his unfortunate passing. Since then, we don't really have milk in the house as much anymore. My son and I found a different way to continue this tradition. We were walking through the grocery store the other day, and I saw another package of cookies. And while it doesn't quite have the same impact, we have found that we love Nutter Butters in our house now because we can pull those apart as well and enjoy them without the milk. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent job. Thank you so much. You did that in 1 minute and 22 seconds. So you did a fabulous job.
We got
As you-
Mingzen is coming off camera here. Maybe we can get her into one of these.
I'm not going to do the practice or the test, but I do have a question for all three panelists here.
Yes.
And it could be a one-on-one question, because the moment that Wendy asked that question, what's your favorite cookie? It reminds me of something that I saw on my girls' backpack last night, because they started to do this kind of training in elementary school. But my question here is that many people think that prepared speech is one step towards impromptu speech. That is, if you're not ready for impromptu speech, maybe start with prepared speech. Write down your outline, organize your thoughts, and then, teachers, they even provided rubrics how you can organize your thoughts. And then the next step is to, go outside and present. So my question for the three panelists here is that, do you think prepared speech is an absolutely necessary pre-step before you start impromptu speech? Or if they are actually two different domains, you can start either one. There's no sequential order.
Ming Zen, I'm going to get and take that real quick here just for 15 seconds. And Wendy has more experience in Toastmasters than I do, but I'm Dale Carnegie certified, prepared, all that, plus all the other training I've had at Pepsi. But the thing that I'll tell you, when you look at structures and constructs, like it'll tell you, introduction, body, conclusion, all that, once you get to constructor, you kind of know the framework, right? The whole impromptu thing to me is, you catch me off of that and you're asking me a question, and here I am, and I'm in a network. So I'm going to just use my skills and, kind of what I practice. But to your question, I don't think it matters, but you need to make sure that you understand those constructs, also first for a prepared speech, that follow these kind of guidelines. And then the rest of this is kind of taking it, relating to people, informally in networking situations and all that. So I hope that answers your question. That's just coming from a pragmatic that, has seen it on both sides.
Do we have more time, or do we need to wrap it up, Deb?
Wendy, it looks like we do need to wrap it up. I do want to take a moment. Thank you. Wonderful presentation, team. Special thank you to Roseanne, Bill, and Wendy for sharing your thoughts and expertise with us. And thank you to those in attendance, and your participation was highly valued.